What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Garage Geopolitics. My name is Matt Livers, and today we're going to be talking about the Fukushima Nuclear Power Plant water release. With that, some of you may be thinking in the back of your mind that, hey, wait, that happened a while ago. Well, we have some current information that we're going to discuss for today's episode. So the topics for today, what happened in the Fukushima area and what happened in Japan in 2011, radioactive water buildup that is taking place around the facility, and then the implications of this power plant's water release into the Pacific Ocean, into the Sea of Japan. And so that's what we're going to be talking about for today's episode. Alright, so let's rewind the clocks a little bit back to 2011. In 2011, there was a massive earthquake on the eastern side of the island of Japan. I think it was a 9.9 scale on the Richter scale, which is huge, which caused a really massive earthquake. Well, the Japanese are very intelligent with their engineering skills, and so the power plant was able to withstand the earthquake. However, no one was expecting a tsunami of the size that hit the island. This is one image. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that are totally scary and very sad to see. How Mother Nature can destroy things in a matter of seconds. And so this tsunami essentially rolled over the power plant, breaking up some of the support equipment and foundations within the power plant, causing the radioactive core to then break down, overheat, and then need to have a bunch of ocean water pumped onto it to keep it cool, to keep it from exploding. Since then, or in 2011, radioactive material, not as harmful as it is today. There is kind of a shelf life for radioactive material, especially with that water, as far as the level of potency that's taking place with that radioactive material. And I'll get to that in a little bit later with my slide. Since the disaster, the Japanese government has been essentially quarantining the water that has been used to cool down the nuclear power plant. So the power plants are still very warm, and the government still needs to figure out ways to cool it off so that it doesn't explode. And so that's what we're going to be talking about as far as the implications with this radioactive water. So here's a nice little map. Who doesn't like a map? We have our earthquake that took place again on the eastern side of Japan. There's our earthquake pretty close to the shore, then causing that massive tsunami to take place. We see on here that we had several different nuclear sites that were damaged. Fukushima had the worst of those sites that were damaged. This was a map of where radioactive material went into the Pacific Ocean. One of the nice things about having the largest ocean right next to this island when this radioactive material went into it is, as I mentioned before, radioactive material does dilute if it is mixed with a huge amount of water, such as the Pacific Ocean. And so the radioactive material didn't go all that far. It did stay pretty potent close to the island, but it didn't venture off to Hawaii and or North America or to any other countries west of Japan. This is the reduction of radiation that I was talking about on that second slide. And so the collapse, or the explosions in the reactors took place in 2011. We can see here on our right map that we have higher amounts of radioactivity on that year of the event. But then fast forward 5 years, we have a significant decrease in the amount of radioactivity that is taking place in that area around the Fukushima power plant. So radioactive material does slowly decrease if it's confined and if it's put into one spot. Now, I'm not going to reference a whole lot of nuclear reactor events from the past, but the Chernobyl explosion was very open. This explosion was a lot different than the reactors being knocked off by a tsunami, and so there's a little bit more sense of an urgency within the Chernobyl power plant than this Fukushima one in Japan. Alright, so what has the government been doing? Obviously, these nuclear power plants, they're not just going to go away overnight. You can't just bulldoze them over and be like, yep, it's gone. So those reactors that were broken were essentially still needing to be cooled. The Japanese government has been collecting all the water that they've been using to cool off these reactors into these containers here. They have enough water in these containers to fill 500 Olympic swimming pools, which is a crazy amount of water. Now, the government is doing the best it can under these certain circumstances. What are you supposed to do once all of your facilities are full? That's where they've gone to the United Nations to say, hey, we have all this water that has been slowly diluting over time that isn't as radioactive as what it was when it was put into the reactor, when it needed to be cooled down. And so now the government is asking to release this water back into the Pacific Ocean. Now, I'm not going to do any Godzilla references, but wouldn't be too surprised that Japan's neighbors are not too happy about the administration of this nuclear reactive water back into the ocean, even if it is smaller amounts. South Korea's government said on Friday of last week that the report by the United Nations groups said it's nothing to be really worried about. It's anything meaningful impact on the waters of South Korea, being that the Fukushima plant is way up here compared to South Korea, so there's not a whole lot to worry about that. South Korea is not happy about it, but they're okay if the United Nations is okay with it. China, on the other hand, wasn't too happy about this. So the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin, excuse me if I mispronounced your name, said on Wednesday last week, criticizing the move towards discharging the water and threatened action if the plan would move ahead. Don't know really what the Chinese are expecting the Japanese to do with this radioactive water. So yeah, I guess if you want to take action, maybe you should have a recommendation that you would like to provide. That's just my thought. And North Korea criticizing the United Nations group with the plan, calling it unjust and a demonstration of a double standard, citing the UN nuclear watchdog's work to curb North Korea's nuclear program. Now, with that, I do have a little bit of beef with North Korea on that. The Un family has not done things very transparently with their people or with the countries around them. It's a little bit different when you're detonating nuclear bombs underground versus trying to deal with the spill from a nuclear power plant. So I hear what you're saying, North Korea, but I don't think that's a really legitimate reason to be calling it double standard. So, the implications. Now, we don't really think about the people that are living around the Fukushima power plant, especially the groups that depend very closely on the water that is near where this power plant was damaged. Local Japanese fishing communities have been objected to a ton of different tests. They were told to stay away from the waters for the 5 years right after the incident took place. They're also subject to some of the highest and strictest radiation testing on any type of fish that they catch. So, from a Japanese fisherman perspective, things are slowly getting back to normal, and now they're like, oh hey, we're gonna release all of this water back into your fishery area to hopefully get rid of it, but we don't know if it's really gonna impact your livelihood or not. Not a good day for the Japanese fishermen close to this reactor plant. Which got me thinking a little bit as far as like how Japan is connected to the seafood organization. Japan being an island in the Pacific Ocean, they do consume a fair amount of seafood. Japanese people eat about 3 ounces of seafood daily on average, while typical Americans will eat maybe 3 ounces twice a week. And so there's a higher consumption of seafood within Japan compared to the United States. I did find this, which was kind of interesting as far as the total exports of seafood. And so we see that we have a large amount of money, $127 million of exports going to other countries from their Japanese commercial fishery. And I think that's my last slide. Yes, it is. That's all that I have for today, guys. Hopefully you learned a couple things about the Fukushima power plant and dumping of the radioactive material into the water. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. If you want to get crazy, hit the subscribe button or the like button, and we'll see you next time. Take care.